spent some time this week in the Missouri Senate on education and, more importantly, education reform, something that's been discussed off and on in this building for several years now, Senator.
Yes, absolutely. This is my 9th year, and it has been a heated topic every single year that I've been here. And I know it was going on before I got here as well.
The proposals that have been laid out, there are several different items in the bill in question, and there's several schools of thought on how to proceed. In your estimation, what needs to happen between now and whenever a finished product would potentially go to the governor?
You know, I think one of the most important things that needs to happen is we all need to realize what we're doing and who we're doing this for. We are trying to make the best choices, the best possible opportunities for the children of this state. So often I'm getting multiple throughout the day, Facebook messages, emails, text messages, phone calls, and they're really very venomous on the public education side. And I hate that, but I've watched it for years. Unfortunately, this is looked at as an us or them situation. Public school on one side, those who want to reform public education on the other. And that's truly not where it needs to be. It needs to be a policy discussion about how to bring the best opportunities to the children of Missouri. And, you know, for those in public education to say, for the 9 years that I've been here, we don't want any changes. The public unions, the school unions have just been no, no, no to any and all changes. That's unrealistic. Every segment, every industry has room for improvement, right? And so to never bring forth any ideas that would be positive changes to our children's education, to never bring forward any policy ideas that you want changed, to allow more innovation, to allow more freedom for our teachers to teach, to never see that, but anytime any changes are proposed, to just be against them. That's very short-sighted and not the best way to work forward with policy. And so as a senator, former representative, I've seen the numbers. Anyone can look at the DESE website and see the numbers of how so many of our schools across the state are failing. Our tax dollars go across the state to all of these schools. I am never going to be okay sticking my head in the sand and saying, well, I'm okay that children are graduating that can't read just because it's not happening in my neck of the woods. As a senator, the bills that we are looking at and the bills that we're going to vote on and that I did as a representative are policies that affect our whole state. I can't vote on it and say this is just for us or this is not for us. So what we've done is, and what we've done every year as rural legislators, is we work together and we try to find things that would benefit our area, that would benefit our students, that would benefit our good performing schools, to give them something extra or to take away some regulations for them. But at the same time, while allowing the changes that need to be made in some of these school districts in St. Louis or whether it's Columbia or where, to be made also. And so, for instance, you know, the bill that's moving through right now, myself and several other senators have been working to get more transportation dollars for our schools in the rural areas. Right now, we are very underfunded when it comes to our school buses, and that takes a huge cut of our local budgets for our schools. And, you know, we have very rural districts, so there's a lot of money being used in gasoline, upkeep on our buses, and we need to get more money put into that for our schools. But at the same time, you know, we have students who are wanting the flexibility, parents who are wanting the flexibility to be able to get their kid out of a school that's underperforming or that's not working for their child and into another school. So the ESAs, our education savings accounts, is one idea that has been put forth in the bill. One of the things that we have done as rural legislators is we've asked that our transportation dollars be funded. And so that's just, you know, one example of a push and pull, trying to come together and find compromise that works for an urban area or an area having trouble, but that also works for us. One of the arguments I've heard against the education savings accounts has been, well, any money that goes into those, the tax credit that doesn't come into the general revenue coffers then is going to lower the money coming into our public schools because it's going to lower the foundation formula. Well, if you're following that school of thought, then you have to also be against any tax cut. You have to be against any other tax credit, because if you're going to say that this tax credit is going to cut the funding for public education because it simply lowers general revenue, then you have to say that about all of the other things that lower general revenue, any other tax cut. So if you've not come out against any and all tax cuts, any and all tax credits, then you should not be acting like this one is going to ruin public education, because that's being disingenuous in the least. We need to take a breath and realize that the goal is to educate children in Missouri, for them to honestly be educated when they leave the high schools. And the fact that we have children that can't read going through graduation is wrong. With these bills, I know that anytime a charter school is brought up, everyone gets really upset. And the truth is that to bring a charter school into rural Missouri, it's not something that happens across the U.S. It's not something that's going to happen in Missouri. They have to have the students to support it. But to say that I'm not going to allow a charter to go where one is needed just because I don't want the fear of it ever looking towards Southeast Missouri is just wrong. That's a wrong thought process. We have got to get out of this fear mongering, and we've got to step back and say, okay, we have great schools in rural Missouri and Southeast Missouri, but there are other areas of the state that do not. And so we should want those children afforded the same opportunities that we have. And shame on us if we don't. So I think that it's incredibly important for my people in Southeast Missouri to understand that I'm fighting to make sure that our schools are not harmed, but at the same time that we are helping the children of Missouri and the ones that are in bad situations. I'm fighting to make sure that we get more funding, that we are taken care of, that we have more freedoms in our classrooms. But at the same time, I'm not going to ignore the fact that we have over 60,000 children right now across Missouri that are not having in-seat classes. What does that mean? That means the mental health issues are increasing. Suicide rates have been going up. That matters. That is significant. And I'm not going to turn a blind eye to it. It is important that we work through these bills. It's important the process that we have. Once they get through the Senate, this one gets through the Senate, it still has the same process to go through in the House. So the bill that comes out of the Senate will not be the final bill. It's always a massaged effort. It's going to be ongoing for the next several weeks. And so I just ask that everyone take a breath, look into what your school's doing, look into what the schools across the states are doing. You can see that on the DESE website. But also realize that I get a ton of emails, voicemails, Facebook posts from parents wanting choice, from parents saying, you know what, my child isn't working at this school. It's too big. The classrooms are too big. I'd like to take my kid over to this other public school. There are parents that are very involved, and those parents' voices matter too. So we have many people who are weighing in on these topics. And I just ask that everyone sit back and realize it's not an us or them proposal. It has to be working together, figuring out what works for all parties, and just realize that, no one has all of the answers. That's why we're working through it. We're massaging these bills and trying to figure out what's going to be the best changes to help the most children. And that's how this needs to be. 9 years later, and still having the same outcomes is just not acceptable.